Welcome to Tuesday Testimonial, everybody. Here we are back for another edition, and so we're gonna give Milo and Say Win a break this week, and I'm gonna step in because got somebody on here very interesting, and I wanted to make sure it was recorded right and it was done right. Not saying they don't do it right, but this guy's jumping on, and he has got one hell of a testimony, and it's just always good when you can see the train wreck and then see what God does with the mess, and how He just resurrects the mess into something good. And so, without further ado, I'm gonna bring on my brother Mick Blankenship and let him tell you a little bit about himself. What's up, Bubba?
What's happening, man? Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for agreeing to do this because not a lot of people want to just pour out their hearts and things. But so, guys, Mick is a accomplished musician and has just tell them what you do, Mick. I mean, you tell it better than I can.
Well, I, for lack of a better term, just out here trying to be a rock star. Uh, but I'm an independent musician, and I put out music. I put out records, and I tour when I can. I do shows when I can, when it makes sense. And I'm actually living my dream, literally.
That's awesome.
So yeah, man,
That is awesome.
I get to play music and do what I love for a living. So.
And guys, if you would like to follow Mick on Facebook, I'm gonna throw up. This is what it'll look like. You will see it as soon as I can find it again. Let's see what happened to it. There it is. All right, so y'all check Mick out on Facebook, and he's got some good stuff out there. Um, if I'm not mistaken, you've just started a page where they can become a Patreon and get some of your music.
Yeah, yeah. So Patreon is it's one of those things I cringe because I don't like asking people for money. That's not what I do. I don't come out here with,
Ooh, come on.
asking with a collection plate. But if people feel led to support me financially, I have given them a platform to do that. But the difference between Facebook and Patreon is those people get exclusive access to me, and they get exclusive content from me. So those people, I treat them, like family. I bring them into my studio here. They get to hear music as I'm working on it. They get to hear music before it's released. They get to see pictures of my family. Then you have the opportunity to converse and talk to me directly on that platform. Things like that. And
Cool.
so what that is it's a monthly subscription, and I have set it up in a way to where the person can they can give whatever they can give. I mean, if it's
Oh,
a
that's
dollar,
cool.
that's fine. If it's $20, that's fine. It's whatever. It's whatever, because it's not the amount of money that I even care about. It's the support and the connection with the people that I love so much. But it also gives me, the opportunity to keep doing what I'm doing, even amid hardships and COVID and things like that we've all been through as musicians. So,
Amen. Yeah, COVID did a number on my ministry. I had a very lucrative prison ministry until COVID come and they just shut that thing right down.
yeah,
But
yeah, I got
it's
it was like somebody came along and just pulled the plug and unplugged your whole operation, and that's
man, I
exactly
had
what happened to me. I got a phone call. I was out on tour. Excuse me. I was out on tour with a band called Puddle of Mud, and we were doing a bunch of dates. And I got a phone call that said, "Hey, don't even go to the next gig. It's over." And I'm like, "What do you mean it's over?" And that was
done.
like as it was just hitting. And he's like, "No, it's over. Like the whole tour has been canceled." And I'm like, "What?" And so, and
So
that was a
many of
lot.
my friends had that happen, man. I mean,
Yeah,
especially even the people that are just playing lower broad here in Nashville, they
sure.
just shut that sucker down. And
Yep.
there was a lot of man. You just we could talk about the damage that was done mentally to people, emotionally to people, because people that don't play don't understand. Your music is an
Right.
emotion. It is part of your emotions, and it really messed some people up bad.
Yeah, man, it's who we are and it's what we do kind of at the same time.
Right,
That's how I make my money. It's how I pay my bills is touring.
but it's
And
also how you express yourself.
sure, yeah.
You know?
I definitely went into a very dark spot after that. Yeah, I definitely fell back into a pretty dark depression, and obviously didn't understand why at the time, but it definitely affected us, especially the independent guys like myself, because you know, trying to bounce back from that. That was the last time I toured. I haven't been on tour since then. I've done shows, but I haven't toured. So since before COVID, and then I'm in the process now trying to rebuild all that.
Right on. Your mic is, we're getting a muted kind of sound there. I don't know if it's the signal or the mic. It's we've been having issues here too. Um, so Mick and I were talking before we came on, and I wanted to say, Mick, have you ever heard the song "My Doctor Was My Dope Dealer"?
No, I don't think I have.
There's actually a song that "My Doctor Was My Dope Dealer," and you ought to try to find that. One of my addicts that I've been helping uh, played me that song and said, "Man, that was my life story." It's like when I heard that song, I was like, "That's my testimony right there."
Yeah,
And
I believe it.
so, guys, so Mick, I keep saying Nick. Mick is now he is a believer, but it took some dark times for him to get there, and I'd like for him just to kind of give that story of the road that he was taken down by doctors. Go ahead, brother.
Well, it all started back in 2009. I had a job opportunity that presented itself and I've always been a Southern Ohio boy, and I had this job opportunity that required me to move to Nashville, Tennessee. And me being a musician, it sounded extremely appetizing. The pay was great. Everything seemed perfect. Um, but just prior to moving to Nashville, the reason I even was looking into getting a new job is because of what was happening at my old job, and I was having a lot of stress, and I wanted out of that situation because of the amount of stress and the corruption and things that I seen at my job. Gave me horrible anxiety and panic attacks and stuff, and I sought out medical help as most people would do in that situation. And when I went to my doctor, former doctor, I should say, he didn't even say anything about hey, go get some counseling, or go see a therapist or a psychologist or any of that. And none of that ever even came up. He just wrote me a prescription right then and there. Said, here, take these pills. You'll thank me later. I have all these people telling me how wonderful I am and how they send me Christmas cards because this stuff saved their life. And just, I'm not kidding you. He said, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but he was selling me a drug, which was
Right?
Xanax. And so I had no idea what Xanax was. I had heard the term before, but I was young and I was, naive. And so I just did what I was told. And the first couple times I took that, I remember how awesome it felt and how, oh my gosh, I can't believe I went my whole life not knowing, I could have just taken medication and it would have fixed all this. And so one thing led to another, and it didn't take very long, and I became very addicted to Xanax because it was the answer. It was the short term answer to a long term problem. And I got into that situation. I didn't get myself into that situation overnight, but it seemed at that time this medication was going to fix that. And so I just did what I was told, and I put blind faith and trust in the doctors or this specific doctor. And right in the midst of my life changing and these huge life changing things these decisions that I had made to uproot myself and move away, miles and miles away from everything I've ever known, move away from my family. And at that time I temporarily moved away from my wife, and just everything I've ever known. And so I went and transplanted myself into Nashville, Tennessee. And I did my best to make friends and things down there and get myself involved in a church. And but it wasn't very long before things started really falling apart for me because I became addicted to these pills. And you know there was all kinds of things that I could say in between there and the end. But basically, fast forward a few years down the road, I started having emotional problems, and I couldn't keep myself collected. And I went to my superiors to get help and say, hey, I really think I need some help. I think I'm addicted to these pills. But instead of help, what I got was pushed out and told that I needed to leave. I need to resign, or I would be basically fired, or they would recommend that I'd be terminated. Of course, there was other circumstances that surrounded all that.
It's a
And
way to watch out, guys, huh?
yeah, man. And it got even darker from there because, I tried to get myself off of it, and I had no idea what kind of a monster was waiting for me on the other side of that. And so I started having horrible withdrawal. I mean, horrible suicide ideation. There were several times I had, my gun in my mouth, and I wanted to leave this life. I really, really did. I was in pure hell. And if anybody has ever experienced withdrawal from a psychotropic drug or any type of tranquilizer of the benzodiazepine family, it's just awful. And so, I started. I decided that I'm going to resign from this job. I need to fix what's wrong. I need to get off of this medication. And sadly, I didn't have anyone's support. It was even tough getting my wife's support at the time because she did not understand. She's, like anyone else, you were told to take this medication. You have these problems. You have, you know, you need to deal with these things and do what the doctors tell you to do. But it was actually making it worse.
Mm.
And so I started having these horrible withdrawals. I could no longer do my job. I had to resign at that point. And the only thing I knew was to move back home near my family and people who are supposed to love me. And I moved back home, and sadly I had no job. I had no way of going and getting a job. I was in no place whatsoever to go apply for jobs, even though I did, and I went and got a different job. But all the meanwhile, I'm dealing with the drug addiction. I'm dealing with the withdrawals. I'm dealing with the mess of what I've made of myself. I'm dealing with the financial situation. We get back home, and we tried to get moved back into our house, and we had defaulted on the loan payment. And then my wife, this all happened simultaneously. My wife lost her job after more than 10 years of being there. And the next thing I knew, we were living in her parents' basement, and I had lost everything, like everything. We had $3,500 in our savings, and I remember we spent that money on a faux attorney, a fake scam attorney out of Los Angeles to try and save our home that we were losing. So we had gotten to the point of zero, broke. We had to borrow money from people to get going again. We had to ask you know people to co-sign loans and help us get back on our feet. And all the meanwhile, I thought I would have the support of people who loved me and my family. And I use that in quotes because blood is not necessarily family. And I had so many people just turn their back on me and bastardize me because of what my decision to get off of this medication. And anyway, I mean, things just went from bad to worse. But, it was during that time, uh, I think I feel God spoke to me more in that time than I've ever heard in my life. Like I heard clear as day. I heard him tell me, first of all, how much he loves me. And I heard God speak to me about the addiction and tell me I'm addicted because I was unaware. I truly was, because
Mm.
that's the word addiction. That's what it means. When you're on it and you don't know, you don't realize that you've become dependent on these chemicals. And now your brain chemistry has shifted permanently. And that's not to say you can't, over time get yourself back in order and get your brain chemistry back in order. But that is the disease of addiction by definition. And so, dealing with all that, I also heard God speak to me that, this was going to take some time and that I needed to have faith in him. And I was so deep into prayer at that time. I don't even know how to describe it in words. And so, fast forward a little bit more. I went to a church and I got myself counseling instead of, because I lost my medical insurance. I had no way of affording counseling. So I went to a church and they used their benevolence fund to pay for counseling. And that began my
Wow.
journey to healing. So that church and that action and those people who, man, I should reach out to them. I haven't talked to them in a while. Good people. That started me on my journey to healing and getting back to, I don't know if the word sober is what, but back to being well again and being whole again and being. So anyway, what I ended up doing was using music as my therapy and as my outlet. And so I went and obviously I was able to find a different job, and I completely left that field and I went into this little repair job where I was repairing electronics, and eventually started doing a lot of like amp repair and things like that. And I was really good at it. Turns out I'm really good at electronics repair. So taught
Bro,
myself how to do that, by the way.
it's funny. The text I just that went off a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah.
Rex MD.
Wow.
Yeah, pharmacies wanting to give me drugs.
Yeah.
I,
Professional
yeah,
drug dealers.
yep.
Crazy, man. So anyway, I went and got myself a different job that was a completely different atmosphere, and I ended up, I got myself a service dog. I got my own, like I said, I ended up with the church's help, got my own counseling. I educated myself.
There you go.
So I
Come
went
on.
out and I bought so many books on benzodiazepines and withdrawal, and I went and sought out other people's testimonies to try and just make sense of it all, because my head was so far out there. I honestly never thought I would recover. I believed that at the time, and what I have, the only way I made it through that was God. That's it. There's no human being on the face of this planet that can do that alone. You just can't.
Well, you do know there's only two drugs you cannot cold turkey come clean off of without dying, and that's alcohol and benzos.
Yeah.
You
Well,
you
I
can you,
I
you
learned
come
that.
yeah, you can come off meth, you can come off any of that stuff. It ain't gonna be pretty, and it ain't fun, especially
Sure.
if you got to do it on a prison floor. Trust me, I know. But yeah, benzos and alcohol. If you don't slowly come off of that, it can kill you, and most likely will.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because it's a very significant point, because I was actually diagnosed with PTSD in 2015, which is like 5 years after the fact. But talking to the doctor who diagnosed me, I clearly had PTSD prior to this job, prior to this addiction already. And I had an anxiety disorder because of the PTSD. And that's another thing I also educated myself on, was the psychological aspect of this. And there's a stigma attached to all of it, so people
Mm-hmm.
don't like to talk about it. But that's honestly, I think that's what sets me apart from a lot of people in the area that are doing what they're doing, and other musicians, because I talk about it, and I will absolutely openly talk about it. But anyway, it has a significant point, because I had to wean myself off of that stuff. And if I hadn't educated myself, I mean, I honestly, it was so cloudy and so awful in the beginning for the first few months. I probably had seizures, especially in my sleep, and I was having hallucinations. I was
Mm-hmm.
having psychotic episodes where, I was experiencing psychosis, and I thankfully consciously was aware I was having it. And so I was able to deal with it and things like that. And, and I
Well,
finally educated myself to the point where I understood what was actually going on.
well, that's what this show's all about. Is for us to help educate other people. And maybe there's somebody out there right now that you're going through this, and what Mick's talking about, like but you don't want to admit
Sure.
and but
Right.
it is this. That's exactly why we're here, and it's to let people know that, man, there's help. There really is, and the biggest thing is that Jesus Christ is the biggest help you can get. Just like Mick was saying, um, man, if God hadn't have been there for him and told him, "Hey, dude, you need to get some help. You're probably addicted," then he wouldn't have done that. But it's like, as he and I were talking, I was reminding him of James 1:2, where it says, "Give joy for your suffering," because it's in our suffering that we grow close to God. It's in our when everything's going good. You know, we don't think about God, but man, whenever you're at rock bottom and you've heard rock bottom, you got nowhere to go but turn to God to reach up and say, man, help, help. You know, they say the greatest prayer to God is He don't want no long bunch of junk. He just says, help me.
Yeah, he just wants your heart, man. It's pretty
That's it.
straightforward.
And you know, another thing about that whole situation that from listening on listen, are you familiar with Celebrate Recovery?
Oh, absolutely. I participated in it.
Well,
Hmm.
that to me is one of the best programs out there because they don't understand addiction is not the problem. Addiction is a result of the problem. Just
Sure.
like you had to find out, really, it was all stemming from the PTSD, and you just never knew it.
Yep.
But in Celebrate Recovery, they have you go to small groups to talk about these things.
And yeah, you discover that you're not alone, man. You are not alone at all. In fact, it's
No,
it's kind of it's staggering and overwhelming to see how many people are going through the very same thing. And if somebody's out there listening to this right now and they're going through it, I think it's really important for you to understand that recovery is not linear. It doesn't get better and better and better and better and better and better. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. It's going to stay down and it's going to go up and it's going to stay up. And it's all depends upon the person. It all depends upon that journey. So, above all, absolutely don't get discouraged because you can and you will overcome it. It's just you need God first of all, and second of all, you got to consciously tell yourself no one's coming to save you. You've got to
that's
do the
it.
work. You've got to put the work in. God doesn't give you a shovel and expect you to lean on it and dig a hole. You got to roll up your sleeves. You've got to be willing to accept your circumstances and willing to accept that you have a problem and you need help. It's that's basic, uh, you know 101 right there. And
That's funny
so,
because I say that all the time. I tell everybody you can't lean on a shovel and pray for a hole. You've got to
yep,
put forth some effort.
yep,
And you know, part of what we do is I usually have a father and daughter that are doing the show for me now. And one thing that we want to do is we want to help the parents and the spouses of addicts understand addiction so that they can better love their addict.
yes,
And
yep,
that is very key because you called it a monster a while ago. We always say if you ain't stood toe to toe with the devil, fought and won, ain't nobody else gonna listen to you.
nope,
I don't care how many books you read. I don't care how many movies you watch. I don't care how many counseling sessions you go to learn about it. Until you've stood toe to toe and whipped the devil yourself, don't nobody want to hear what you got to say.
that's right. And it's not something, I say it a lot. You don't get yourself there overnight. You're not going to fix it overnight. It's a process. And educate, 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 and learn, and keep teaching yourself. Even if you only move an inch, just keep pushing forward because
That's
eventually
it,
you're going to get there, right?
right?
And so, now I have a vast understanding of mental health. I actually ended up working in a mental health facility for a short while after that, where I learned even more about mental health and wellness and things like that, and disorders and all these things that I thought were wrong with me when, it was clearly PTSD. That's what it all stemmed from. And so I still deal with disorders. Obviously, I have anxiety from time to time. I still have depression from time to time. That's life. And I still have OCD things. I have coping mechanisms that drives my wife up the wall. But you know what? It's manageable.
And you can
And
always talk to God.
absolutely, yeah. And you could absolutely recover from that, and you can absolutely be successful again. But you have to be patient with yourself, and because it's not on your terms, it's not on your time, it's on God's time. And if God still has a purpose for you, you'll get there.
Well, brother man, so we've talked about this train wreck, and let's talk about where you're at today
Sure.
because of God identifying your addiction to you.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know what's going on with my camera, why it's not focusing, but let's see if we can get it to focus. There we go.
Yeah, mine's been doing the same thing, boss.
All
And
right. Well,
I got a delay. It's all right.
there we go. I think it's an autofocus issue. Okay. So anyway, uh, you know, several years. It took 4 or 5 years after moving back to Ohio and getting counseling and getting off of that stuff. where I was able to actually go out and get a job and get, health insurance again, things like that. And so I financially started to rebuild my life. My wife and I both, it brought us closer together, and we decided that we're never going to put ourselves in that position again. So, we worked really, really hard, and I worked a lot of doubles, a lot of overtime, and things like that to get myself to where I'm at. And so we had a very, very serious discussion about, me and my music, because in the midterm, like I said, part of the way I dealt with this was music. So I started writing music, and I felt like I could do that on a professional level. So I went out and I got Pro Tools. I taught myself how to use Pro Tools. I asked questions. I watched videos. I've always been pretty good at music, but then I started teaching myself how to write music, and I went through this whole learning phase, and then I ended up writing a song, and then I ended up getting with a producer by the name of Travis Wyrick out of Knoxville, Tennessee, and I wrote my first song called "Worthless Me," and that song is about my depression, and I started learning. I learned about production. I learned about writing. I learned about the process and how to, about how to make a song. And so I was really, really good at what I was doing. So I just kept going. My wife encouraged me, and I ended up doing, getting with another producer. So as life would have it, I ended up meeting Mr. John Moyer, who is the bass player of the band Disturbed, who's now a very dear friend. But at the
Awesome.
time, through God's will and opportunities, I ended up meeting this guy. He really liked what I was doing, and I connected with him, and I was able to get him to help me produce what is now my very first single, which is called "Transcend the Machine." And all this stuff is available on Spotify and YouTube and things like that. So anyway, I did this song, and it did so well, and the response that I got on social media was doing so well that I decided I wanted to do like a demo, right? And at the same time, all this stuff happens, like it's all intertwined. At the same time, there was a band called Stone Temple Pilots, and I'm sure
Yeah.
most people have heard of that band. Was looking for a lead singer, and so I threw my name in the hat for that because I really, really like Stone Temple Pilots, and I was really, really good at singing Scott Weiland. So what had happened from that was the local radio stations here in Cincinnati they saw the auditions that I put on YouTube and stuff, and the people flipped out, man. They started playing my auditions side by side with Stone Temple Pilots on the radio, and so like it
Cool.
seemed like instantaneously things started blowing up. And I got all this attention, and I got all these people that started following me on social media and all this support and stuff like that. And for the first time in so long, I was
But
given
God.
confidence. And I wanted at that time, man. In my heart, in my mind, I believed that I was going to be the new lead singer of STP, and I believed that that's what I was supposed to do. Lo and behold, that wasn't God's plan, but it was all part of it.
Yeah.
And so it gave me this massive boost of confidence, and I ended up starting like a tribute band with it and all that stuff. It was very, very successful, and it molded me into this front man or this lead singer that I was never. I could always play drums, I could always sing, I could always play guitar, but to be a front man and to be the rock star, it takes a lot of work. You don't just do it, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I ended up using that momentum along with my opportunities that were presented to me with Mr. John Moyer, and he helped me make a record. Like I actually made a record. It's Mick Blankenship, and the title of the record is called Crown of Apathy. And so I did this record, and then I realized I'm not my addiction. I am not disabled. I am perfectly capable of living my dream. And so
Amen.
this massive window of opportunity opened, and I didn't even know it. Like I did, but I didn't. I didn't understand what was happening. And so I put this record out. I called a few friends, pulled a few, favors, and next thing I knew, I'm out on tour and I'm doing it. I'm living it. And I swear it wasn't a year later, I saw my name on a marquee outside of an arena of 5,500 people. I was the opening band, of course, but I did it. I was there.
Right.
I got pictures. My backdrop was hanging, and I was doing this show, man, in front of 5,000 people. And I wasn't a cover band. I wasn't a tribute band. It was Mick Blankenship. It was my
There you
music
go.
I created, man. So super, super proud of that. And
God is good,
yeah, man. And of
and He
course it
gives you the
was
desires of your heart.
absolutely. But it's not as glamorous as it sounds. It is awesome, and especially looking back on it. But it didn't come without its hatery. It didn't come without its naysayers. It didn't come without the thousands of no's that I've gotten doors slammed in my face. I had to keep working at it, man. And here I am. I'm still working at it. But
I went to a barn church up in Kentucky this weekend, and when I say barn, it was a tobacco barn. It was slats that wide, and the wind was howling about 60 mile an hour through there. It was
that's
45
awesome,
degrees,
though.
but man, we had church, bro. We had church in that barn,
Yeah,
and
man.
it was awesome. And the guy was preaching on jealousy, and he went around the room and he was like, Pastor Chris has got a really good addiction ministry in Nashville. I want what he's got. And then he walked over. There was another pastor there. He was like, this guy's got this, this, and this, and I want what he's got. And there was this master craftsman there, and he goes, I want what he's got. And he said, some of y'all probably look at me and go, you want what I got. But what I'm asking you is, I don't want to go through what Pastor Chris had to go through to get what he's got.
Exactly.
I don't want to go through what that guy went through to get what he's got. You want to have what I got, but are you willing to go through what I went through to get it?
Right. Well,
So
amen to that. Woo.
no jealousy.
Yeah, man. So that'll teach you to not be jealous real quick. Because, I joke about it now when people are like, man, I wish I could be doing that. I wish I could play that show with that band, or I could do that. And I'm like, just like you said, yeah, but are you willing to put the work in? Are you willing to be told no? Are you willing to feel like a failure over and over and over and over and over and over again? And then some more,
And the devil will use doubt and fear to keep you from getting where God wants you to be.
of course, it's the most convenient tool.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man. But yeah, I did it. I played those arenas. I played those shows. I toured on a national level. And then, COVID came along, like we said, and just pulled the rug completely out from underneath me and it's just like somebody just turned the switch off, man. And it sent me back down a very dark path. And, those part of that process of the recovery is sometimes you have to relive that stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was a massive trigger for me. And I went right back to that dark, horrible, suicidal ideation. And, I didn't realize it at the time, but I admittedly started, drinking alcohol again. And first of all, there's nothing wrong with having a drink. I'm not even trying to discuss that. But for me, it brought back a lot of those things because I was out there having a good time and all the intentions were good. But then when I started drinking liquor, to deal with some of the anxiety and some of the fears and doubts, and just basically I would do it to get loosened up and get comfortable on stage. And I didn't drink to excess or anything like that, but it did put me in a position where I started making horrible decisions.
And then you go, oh, wait a minute. I know this feeling. I've been here before.
Yep.
I got to stop this now.
I did. And what was crazy is the decision to stop drinking came so easy to me that time. It was nothing like the Xanax. First of all, I wasn't drinking to the point where I was going to have withdrawal. But I got to the point where I was drinking something almost every day. And that, to me, that it got scary. Yeah. I don't think I became addicted to alcohol at all, but it was triggering a lot of what I used to deal with. So I just decided it's probably best that I don't drink alcohol. Well, I may not have had physical withdrawal, but I started going through this psychological withdrawal, which put me back in that headspace and put me back in that dark place. And it's not just the alcohol. It's everything. It's all of those things. It's that brings this on. And, I got into some negative stuff I shouldn't have on social media. And I got into some back and forth with people I should have never engaged with. And all these things. And it started triggering this anxiety again. And it was just horrible. And I'm like, well, here we go again, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm really, really going to focus get myself, back in a position of health and balance, and to heck with the alcohol. And I just, I prayed about it, and literally the desire of to drink alcohol at all completely vanished
God
instantaneously.
will take it away if you ask Him to. I've seen,
Oh,
not
without a
everybody
doubt.
can do it. Like for me, bro, my drink was Gentleman Jack, and I was doing a fifth a day. I was doing a half gallon on the weekends.
Mm,
I mean, it was my demon. When they say there's spirits in them bottles, they're spirits. It ain't. It's evil. It ain't
yeah.
nothing good about it. And God took the taste out of my mouth. Just. I mean, He did it.
Yep.
And I can't even stand to think of the taste of it anymore.
Yeah, the last time I had a drink was probably a year and a half ago, and it was all, I just wanted to have a beer or two, and well, I was running sound for a band, and I did, and I was fine, had a little buzz or whatever, and got over it, and I did my job and packed up, and went home, didn't think anything of it. But the next day, this is hilarious because I feel like I'm so old now, but I had the worst hangover for just a couple of beers, and
Hank
that to
Jr.
me,
said hangovers hurt worse than they used to.
yeah, well, I'm 42 now.
All right.
But I was right at 40 years old, and I decided to have a few beers, and or I don't even remember what it was, 2 or 3 beers, and I had the worst hangover, and I was like, you know what, I'm just done. It's not even worth it at this point. So for me, it was a pretty easy decision. My desire to drink alcohol has just vanished, gone. And I didn't even really desire to drink that night. I was more curious than anything. What would it be like to have a couple beers? So, but anyway, I digress.
How did God? I mean, it's just amazing how God restores.
Yeah.
He restored you from your addiction. He restored your life. He restored your career. Your marriage. I know you haven't talked a lot about that, but this had to be taxing on the marriage.
Oh man, yeah. I try to keep my private life private, but basically, yeah, it was very taxing, and there were a couple times where we didn't think we were going to make it, and this this issue was at the heart of it all, absolutely. And you know what? God bless
Thank
my
God
wife.
God gave you a woman that would stand by you through it.
Man, you ain't kidding there, man. I don't deserve it, that's for sure.
I
Um,
understand.
but it's you can't do it alone. You have to have, first of all, you have to have God, and then second of all, you have to be willing to swallow whatever pride or ego that is
Because
eating you
God
alive.
hates pride.
Hmm.
He hates it.
And go get some help, man.
Well, listen, we're going to have to get off of here, but I've enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much for doing this. But earlier you said you've got your own business now, and that things are really getting good for you. What is your own business? What are you doing with that?
It is the music. So I do a
Okay.
few things under my umbrella. One of the things that obviously I'm an artist and I put out music, and I have published music that's out there now, and I've had a couple songs on the radio and things like that. And I have fully intend to keep pushing that more than anything. I'm also a licensed real estate agent, and I also run recording studio services, and I also have a sound production business that I do all under the same umbrella. So I kind of do whatever's necessary, whatever I got to do to survive, man. That's what I do. And
Well, guys, y'all go look him up. I'm gonna put it up here again. Y'all go look him up on Facebook and find him there, or I'm assuming you can also find him on YouTube, Spotify, and man, y'all bless this brother with some funds. I mean, I know I hate asking for money, but right now, our church is broke, and we just got asked to leave because people don't like me preaching the truth.
yep.
A church was hosting us, but when I start preaching about the Holy Spirit and the power of the Holy Spirit, people get all wiggly and jiggly, and so we're looking for a place to be able to hold services after January 1st, and
And
we
you
just
will.
He's going to bring it. I'm not even doubting that at all. But I know how I hate asking for money. But guys, get on his Patreon. Check out his music. It's awesome. Mick and I actually met through my friend. A lot of y'all know my boy Trey McCampbell. We've been riding dives for quite a while now, and did ministry together, did church together, and he plays a lot of Mick stuff on his. I don't even know if he's doing it no more, I know he took a break from his morning show and so forth. And but y'all check it out and get on there and look Mick up and listen to some of the stuff, man. I don't know who did your video work on that uh, first video you did or whatever, the Worthless Me. But
Hmm.
man, that was some good stuff. Really
Yeah, I
good stuff.
appreciate that, man. I always
I
tell
enjoy.
everybody, I joke and I'm say if you like bands like Disturbed or Shine Down or Seven Dust or Godsmack or things like that, you would probably like my music. So that's kind of
I
the vein.
love Disturbed's version that they did of what was it, Simon and Garfunkel, "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend,"
Sound of Silence. Yeah.
"Sound of
Mhm.
Silence." Oh my gosh, I love their version of that. That is just off the chain.
Yeah, man.
And when I heard that, I was just like, wow. And you just named a lot of the bands I still enjoy listening to this day.
Yeah, and I'm
But
very, very proud to say that those are friends of mine, man. And I who would have ever thought that I would be friends with those guys, man. So it's pretty awesome.
right. Well, brother, there's always some groups like Skillet and Red and stuff out there too. You could be
Oh,
maybe lean
don't
lean.
tempt me with a good time.
I got the Lord. It's a long story, so I'm gonna make it very brief. But the Lord slew me in the spirit, gave me a message, told me to take it out to the world. I'm like, Lord, you got the wrong cat, man. I don't have that kind of platform. And the Lord said, well, I do. And within 2 weeks, I was booked till next December to go out evangelizing. And one of the very first gigs was opening for this dude, Ben Fuller. Now, I
Hmm.
don't know if you've heard of Ben or not, but I had not until that day. I didn't realize what a big deal he was. I was just like, okay, I'll go preach before he. He came to Nashville with expectation of being a huge country star and ended up in addiction and ended up with life down the toilet. And God got a hold of him at a church. And now he's got number one songs and he's out touring with Zach Williams.
Wow, I love Zach Williams. So yeah,
Oh, I
man,
do
that's
too.
awesome.
Well, check him out. You'd probably like some of his songs. But
Cool, man. Yeah,
but anyway, hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate you guys.
sure.
You know what we say. God loves you. I love you. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Peace out. We're gonna get out of here. Thank y'all.
See ya.